May the House please come to order. Everybody take their seats. Before we start, a little bit of a reminder. We ask everybody to please wear their jackets. Okay, we will now start with the roll call. If you hear your delegation being called out, please raise your placard and say present. Afghanistan, Albania, Algeria. Is Algeria present? Angola, Argentina, Armenia, Australia, Austria, Bahamas, Bangladesh, Bahrain, Belarus, Belgium. Is Belgium present? Benin, Bhutan, Bolivia, Bosnia and Herzegovina, Botswana, Brazil, Brunei Darussalam, Bulgaria, Burundi, Cambodia, Cameroon, Canada, Chad, Chile, China, Colombia, Comoros, Congo, Costa Rica, Cote d'Ivoire, Cuba, Croatia. Is Croatia present? Is Croatia present? Not present. Denmark, Dominican Republic, Ecuador, Egypt. Egypt is not present. Equatorial Guinea, Eritrea, Estonia, Eswatini, Ethiopia, Fiji, Finland, France, Gabon, Gambia, Georgia, Germany, Ghana, Greece, Guatemala, Haiti, Honduras. Honduras not present? No, not present. Iceland, India, Monaco not present? Present. Indonesia, Iran. Is Iran present? Iraq, Ireland, Israel, Italy, Jamaica, Japan, Kazakhstan, Kenya, Lao People's DR, Latvia. Is Latvia present? Not present. Lebanon not present either. Liberia is not present either. Lydia, not present. Lithuania, Luxembourg, Madagascar, Malawi, Malaysia, Mali, Marshall Islands, Mauritania, not present. Mexico, Micronesia, Monaco, Montenegro, Morocco, Myanmar, Namibia, Netherlands, New Zealand, Nicaragua. Is Nicaragua present? Not present. Nigeria, Norway, Oman, Pakistan, Panama, Paraguay, Peru, Philippines, Poland, Portugal, Qatar. Qatar is not present. The Republic of Korea, Romania. Romania is absent. Russia, Saudi Arabia, Senegal, Serbia, Sierra Leone, Singapore, Somalia, South Africa, Spain, Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka is not present. St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Sudan, Sweden, Switzerland, Syria. Syria is not present. Tanzania, also absent. Thailand, Timor-Leste, Togo, Turkey, Turkmenistan, Uganda, Ukraine, United Arab Emirates, United Kingdom, United States of America, Uruguay, Uzbekistan. Uzbekistan is absent. Vietnam, Venezuela, Yemen, Zimbabwe, Greenpeace. Greenpeace is absent. Reporters Without Borders, and the World Trade Organization. With that, the roll call is finished, and we will now hand the word to our Secretary General, Jelto Haikans.
Excuse me? Say that again. We will correct that in the list. Thank you for the information. We now yield the floor to Secretary General Jelto Haikans.
Esteemed delegates, honorable presidency and chairs, dear OLMUN directors and guests, I'm honored to be standing in front of you today as the Secretary General of OLMUN Model United Nations Conference 2022. It has been 3 years now that OLMUN wasn't able to take place entirely in person. Therefore, we, the Secretariat and the Inner Circle, are extremely happy to welcome so many of you in Oldenburg today and be a host for the next 4 days. Yet, it takes only a brief look around to notice just how much our world is in distress. Flashpoints are seen all over the globe, let it be the continuous worsening situation in Afghanistan, the never-ending civil war that can be observed in the Gemini Republic, or of course, the Russian assault on Ukraine. It now saddens me to take a look back at the words of our former Secretary General, Robin Runge, who stood here, right here in 2018, saying, as a generation that has not faced wars at first hand, it is alarming to see how the world is falling apart. And now I'm in this position, and I have to acknowledge that the shadow of war is as present as it has ever been to this generation. More than ever, it is looming over us, and one is left to desperately seek for an end in sight. As time goes by, the idea of peace, almost seems like a cruel joke. One catastrophe supersedes the other. A solved conflict is replaced by another one, which seems even worse. Our generation is widely believed to be incredibly fortunate, having been born in peaceful times and without the dread of a nearing war. But even this perception is slowly but surely fading away. The United Nations, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, NATO, the European Union, all of them claim to work with one equal goal in mind: peace. However, this thing we call peace, while so arduously acquired, never seems to last, inflicting an immeasurable frustration. Allegedly, it is what all of us have been trying to accomplish for the last 3,500 years, to no avail. In the face of this incredibly frustrating and to some degree saddening history, it is easy to lose hope. It is easy to call this peace out for being a lost cause. Why even bother if the billions that have come before us couldn't make it work either? At this point, I shall refer to a man called Johann Galtung, a sociologist who has done incredible work in the field of peace and conflict studies. According to him, peace cannot simply be defined as a process that is either active or inactive. He defines peace as a society's capacity to transform. This concludes that there is no final peaceful state at which a society can find itself. We are rather continuously attempting to improve ourselves and make our future brighter. On our way to peace, it is not the utopia we're searching for. It is the constant work on ourselves, hence inspiring others. We may not be able to influence the works of a mind like Russia's President Vladimir Putin, but it is our task to approach him with dignity and a clear mind. Let it be our pride to have risen above his kind. Let it be our pride to be stronger than him. We are not striving for peace because it is easy, but because it is hard. One shall not be discouraged by the many failures that have been recorded throughout mankind's history. Therefore, one shall learn from the mistakes that were made and approach future problems more prepared. Like Galtung's remarks, we will never get the satisfaction of an eternal peace, for humanity is a lot, but far from perfect. But this doesn't mean that we, the future of this century, should bail, should be discouraged. We work on ourselves, and others for as long as it takes. And it doesn't matter whether the effect only shows after 10 or even 100 years later. Only those of us that are open to understand what causes our conflicts and are open towards proposals for peace can change the world. And in this spirit, distinguished delegates, in the name of the Secretariat of OLMUN 2022, I wish you the courage to overcome borders, the motivation to find compromises, and the creativity to think outside the box, and to yield the floor to proposals for peace. May the next 4 days be filled with great conversations, a lot of fun, and of course, fruitful debates. I hereby declare the 21st Oldenburg Model United Nations Conference for officially opened. Thank you. I yield the floor back to the presidents.
Disaster unfolding overseas tonight in South Africa. Catastrophic flooding, nearly 450 people dead.
Devastating fires in Australia, killing at least 18 people, forcing tens of thousands from their homes.
The last decade was the Earth's warmest on record. 2019, the second hottest year
Human
ever.
activities are leading to record amounts of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere.
December 17th, a young vendor named Mohammed Bouazizi was devastated when a police officer confiscated his cart. After local officials refused to hear his complaints, this young man went to the headquarters of the provincial government, doused himself in fuel, and lit himself on fire.
It was the spark for unprecedented protests that forced an autocratic president to flee and led to the Arab Spring that toppled regimes across the Middle East.
Egypt,
Syria,
Libya,
Iraq, Yemen.
There were thousands of people protesting.
Turning now to one of the deadliest conflicts in the world. Yemen's civil war has been going on for nearly 3 years.
More than 10,000 people have died, 2 million others have been displaced.
The suspected drone attack could mark a major escalation.
Eight million people are on the brink of famine.
One of the world's worst humanitarian crises.
And let me finally stress there are no military solutions to this conflict.
More needs to be done to really help Yemen tackle this crisis.
First of all, thank you to our Secretary General for his incredible speech, and also thank you very much to our Chief of TV, Eric Demann, who has prepared this incredible opening video for this opening ceremony. Now, we will be moving on to the opening speeches which you, the delegations, have prepared beforehand. If you intend to hold an opening speech, you will now raise your placard and please raise it high. Please raise your placards, not your flags. We will begin with the delegation of Bolivia. Please approach the stage. We yield the floor to you.
Thank you. Your Excellency Secretary General, Your Excellency Secretary General, Executive Team, Honorable Chair Board, dear advisors and distinguished delegates. The plurinational state of Bolivia is a landlocked country located in South America. It is bordered by Peru, Chile, Argentina, Paraguay, and Brazil. It is situated in the center of the continent. The country is named after the 19th century liberator Simon Bolivar. And Bolivia gained independence from Spain under his leadership on 6 August 1825. Bolivia is one of the founding members of the United Nations. Since its establishment, the organization has become a member of the United Nations on 14 November 1945. It has a population just over 11 million, making it the world's 18th largest country in 2020. The country has the second largest reserves of natural gas in South America. As the ambassador of Bolivia, I am confident that together with our delegates, we will represent our country in the best way possible in committees. We are proud to take part in such an important conference and wish it to be a fruitful conference for all the delegates. Thank you.
Would the delegation please yield the floor back to the presidency? The delegation has to yield the floor back.
We yield the floor back to presidency.
Thank you very much. I would just like to inform you now that note passing is from now on in order. You can pass notes to other delegations of which you have heard the speech, for example, in order to share your sentiments. We'll now continue the opening speeches, and I would like to remind you to stick to the time limit that we have set beforehand in direct contact. Please raise your placard. Albania, you may approach the stage. We yield the floor to you.
Dear President, honorable delegates, Albania is deeply honored to attend this conference. Moreover, it is ever so proud to be a part of the UN since 1955 and to be a part of this conference as well. No one can deny that we've been facing a great ocean of global problems, especially in the last few years. No one can deny that these problems affect lesser developed countries and minorities most severely. No one can deny that this is extremely unjust, as they are by no means to blame for the causation of the problems. Acknowledging the problems, dealing with them, and finding solutions is a huge challenge. We should work on this together. We need to work together towards a common goal and support each other to combine individual strength. Thereby, it will be easier to navigate the ocean of problems. On our own, we might get lost or drown. Albania hopes for productive debates and successful solutions. Thank you. I yield the floor back to the President.
Thank you very much. We would like to remind you that clapping after the speeches of the delegations is not in order. Thank you for your speech. If any other delegations would like to hold a speech, please raise your placard. We shall continue with Estonia. You may approach the stage and we yield the floor to you.
Thank you. Distinguished delegates, esteemed presidency, ladies and gentlemen, the delegation of Estonia is delighted to be present at OLMUN 2022 and to greet you here in person after a lengthy period of online communication. And even though we all had to leave our cozy pajamas at home, we are sure that the upcoming dialogues are worth it. Undeniably, the world today finds itself in a very complex situation. COVID-19 pandemic, climate change, heated military conflicts. With all of it going on simultaneously, it might not be so easy to face the multitude of difficulties, and some might even feel overburdened by all these demands. But we are all here today, which proves that every nation present is ready to work on finding solutions to the striking issues. We are looking forward to expedient discussions in the upcoming days. With this being said, I yield the floor back to the President.
Clapping is not in order. Thank you for your speech. And we would also like to remind you that if you, the delegation of a country, is open for any points of information, you have to state this at the end of your speech. Just say the delegation of is open for points of information and the number of points you're open for. And in this case, other delegations may approach the microphone standing there between you and can ask something. Okay, if you want to hold a speech, raise your placard high. We'll continue with Ethiopia. Please approach the stage. You have the floor.
Distinguished delegates, honorable chairs.
The delegation of Ethiopia is grateful to stand before you today, yet the cause for this is not a very gratifying one. For decades, Ethiopia has been characterized by internal conflicts who divide our beautiful country. Many untruths have been rumored in the press in the past few weeks, but yet I can only say that the Ethiopian government stands for peace. Nevertheless, as a democratic country, we are committed to national reconciliation and the willingness to engage in dialogue. Many of us now experience really clearly what it means to live in a world with conflicts and international crises. The climate crisis, which threatens our livelihoods and which experts have warned us about for decades, is now being felt more and more clearly as consequences around the world. As well as the COVID-19 pandemic, whose outcomes we still have to deal with today, or the war in the Ukraine that has been going on since February. Our world is encountering more and more crises that affect us all in our everyday lives. The situation in Ukraine is not only a matter of European or Western affairs, it affects us all by weakening international law, making our world less safe, and also by rising red prices, hunger, suffering, and instability around the world. As Ethiopia closely follows the development in Europe with great caution, we urge all parties to exercise restraint in the Ukraine, whether it is a health pandemic, environmental crisis, or an armed confrontation. It is this vulnerable section of our society that suffers the most. Let not the failure of diplomacy be the reason millions of lives are uprooted when the tools of creating international harmony are within our means. The delegation of Ethiopia is glad to be part of this year's conference, and we're happy that in the conference all topics will be finally addressed and that we as nations can work on a solution together. We yield the floor back to the President.
Thank you. Clapping is not in order. We'll now have one more opening speech. After that, we'll entertain Jürgen Krogmann, and after that, go back to having opening speeches by you. Please raise your placard. We continue with Guatemala. Please approach the stage. You have the floor.
Thank you. Dear Presidency, honorable delegates, honorable Chair, the United Nations have gathered here today to cooperate, to solve, and to propose for peace. We are fighting every single day for a better world, the bond of humanity. In the past year, 355 wars, crises, and serious conflicts were counted. The year of 2022 started with an invasion, a war, on the 24th of February. The Republic of Guatemala is remaining in solidarity with the Ukraine. The upcoming months of 2022 and the following years are a chance for the United Nations to stand up to the conflicts and propose for peace, a chance to overcome the bloodshed, the pain, and the illnesses occurring in our lives, focusing on the future and envisioning the development of humanity wounded by the increasing prevalence of genetic disorders and diseases. The second leading cause of death is cancer, which could be treated through the advancement of genetic engineering. The Third General Assembly, the Social, Cultural, and Humanitarian Council will face the question of the ethical concerns with human genetic engineering. Deeply convinced that the cooperation of the United Nations will give us, the humanity, you, and you, and you, new lungs to breathe. With the gene-modifying technique like CRISPR and further investigation, we can advance our knowledge in terms of funded research institutions and the necessary education. In order to advance, Guatemala, as a developing country, depends on investments from developed countries. We stand up now for our all's future. Thank you. I yield the floor back to the Presidency.
Clapping is still not in order. Okay, as I have said before, we will now put in a short break into the opening speeches because we are extremely glad to welcome Jürgen Krogmann, Mayor of Oldenburg, here with us today at the Congress Hall. Jürgen Krogmann, you have the stage, and I yield the floor to you. Clapping is in order.
Dear Mr. Heikens, ladies and gentlemen, I welcome you on behalf of the city of Oldenburg. The OLMUN is a very remarkable project. It has become Germany's largest model United Nations conference with more than 900 students attending each year. That is really impressive in several ways. First of all, it is a great achievement to organize such a huge conference on your own, with so many people involved, so many things to think of it. Well done, and thank you to the inner circle of this conference. But what is even more fascinating, your engagement in international issues and politics and questions that are relevant to people around the world. That so many young people have come to discuss international politics and to work at various challenges. That makes me really proud. Thank you for coming and thank you for taking part to this conference. You gave the conference the title Causes of Conflict and Proposals for Peace. I think this is more relevant than ever. The horrible war in the Ukraine and the current threat to world peace show what happens when bridges between peoples and nations collapse, when understanding turns into hatred. We have to accept peace and stability is nothing guaranteed. But what can be done about it? How can we help to restore peace and justice again? You are going to discuss causes of conflicts. You are going to ask for reasons for underlying matters. That proves the seriousness of your claim as well as your determination to look for possible answers, for ways out of the crisis. I can only support that. Even if our world's problems seem overwhelming at the moment, we must not stop fighting for solutions. You are on your way to shape the present according to the principles of international understanding. And the OLMUN is a perfect field to expand your skills and your possibilities. In fact, it is a vital part of education. Because understanding what is going on in current affairs is not easy. And it is true that there's hardly enough time at school to learn about world politics in a more complex way. UN resolutions should be guiding or even governing the world, but how do they come about and what do they mean? The OLMUN is a perfect context for finding out and for adopting skills that can be of great value to you throughout your lives. In this sense, I thank you very much for your coming. Let's stand up for a peaceful coexistence and let us prevent hatred and exclusion in the bud. I am convinced that there is a common, hopeful future to build, as long as there are young, committed people like you. Thanks to everyone who took part in organizing this year's conference. You've done a great job, and thanks to everybody participating. I wish you some inspiring days in Oldenburg. Make the most of it and enjoy your time. And, special for our international guest, don't hesitate to come back sometime for university or for a job. You are always welcome here. Thank you very much.
Mr. Krogmann, please stay on the stage. Mr. Krogmann, would you please stay on the stage? I would kindly ask you to stay there for now. Thank you. Thank you very much for your kind words. now going back to the opening speeches. But beforehand, I would like to remind the delegation that has now interrupted a speaker twice to stop that, or unless be removed from the venue. Thank you very much. Please raise your placards if you want to hold an opening speech. India.
Honorable executive team members, fellow delegates, and dear guests. It is my utmost honor to stand here at the 21st International Session of OLMUN. There are hundreds of ongoing conflicts in the world, all of which cause nothing but harm. The rapidly decreasing amount of humanitarian aid and funding is unfortunately making it harder for member states to progress. Unsurprisingly, the COVID-19 pandemic has worsened the situation. It is now our responsibility to work together as members of the same world. Throughout history, the UN has played a vital role in solving conflicts. UN operations have helped countries to close the chapter of conflict and open a path to normal development, even if major peace-building challenges remain. The Indian delegation would like to underline its determination to fully implement all required policies in order to promote global peace. Thus, India believes that the key to world peace rests on multilateral efforts within the UN to assist in the global effort to solve conflicts around the world, even the ones that are thought to never end, such as Yemen. India furthermore hopes for fruitful debates. Thank you all for listening. The floor is yielded.
Thank you very much. Okay, I will now remind you once more, clapping is not in order after speeches. This means that you will not clap after speeches held by delegations. This is not according to the rules of procedure or the handbook. If you want to hold a speech, please raise your placard. We will continue with the delegation of Pakistan. Please approach the stage. We yield the floor to you.
Dear Mr. President, honorable chairs, distinguished delegates, I am honored to stand in front of you on behalf of the Islamic Republic of Pakistan. The world is facing triple challenges of COVID-19, the economic crisis, and the threats posed by climate change. The common threats faced by us today clearly demonstrate not only the fragility of the international system, they also underscore the oneness of humanity. The Islamic Republic of Pakistan has, by the grace of Almighty Allah, been prospering. Pakistan is grateful for the collaboration enabled by the United Nations and will support any resolution not contradicting the national goals of Pakistan in the Human Rights Council, in the General Assembly, and in Sochum. We deeply value your collaboration. I love Pakistan. I would sacrifice my life for Pakistan. Thank you. Now I yield the floor back to the presidency.
Thank you for not clapping. I know it might seem impolite, but this is not according to the rules of procedure. Thank you. Which delegations would like to hold a speech? Please raise your placard. And we'll continue with Greece. Please approach the stage. We yield the floor to you.
Dear Mr. President, honorable delegates, esteemed staff, democracy, the government of the people, the highest principle of Hellenic foreign policy, should be upheld as a cornerstone in all committees. It means compromise, cooperation, and having an open sphere for others' opinions. This is of particular significance in the field of bioethics and genetic engineering because of its high controversy and complexity. On the one hand, human genetic engineering could save lives through treatments and thus enhance humanity's development. On the other hand, malpractice and wrong intention have the potential to endanger millions of lives on our crowded earth threatened by pandemics. The more is at stake, the more important the diplomatic realm of politics becomes. As Socrates once said, it is better to change one's opinion than to persist in a wrong one. The delegation of Greece will yield the floor back to the President and is open to points of information, to one point of information.
Thank you very much. Were there no points of information? Why are you leaving? Why is the delegation leaving the stage? The delegation can return to the podium if he is open for points of information. Okay. If you have any points of information, please raise your placard. Okay, it seemed as if there were any placards raised. Okay, thank you very much. You can yield the floor back.
I will yield the floor back to the President.
Thank you.
Are there any further delegations wishing to hold speech? The delegation of Japan, you have been recognized and you have the floor.
Dear Mr. President of the General Assembly, Honorable General Secretary, distinguished ambassadors, delegates, and guests. It's a great honor to speak to you as the ambassador of the State of Japan, which is looking forward to an exciting and fruitful conference with a lot of bold ideas that will enable us to move forward. Japan has been a strong and reliable partner over the few years, not only for allies, but also for the United Nations as a whole. We hope that our delegation can make valuable contributions that allow world peace, human rights, and secure international security and sovereignty. The last few years confronted us with many challenges like the COVID-19 pandemic, the climate change, or the war in Europe. A few of those are issues that we could have prohibited if we had acted more quick and named the problem directly. It's our job to act now and to learn from the mistakes of the past. We share the values of multilateralism, cooperation, and diplomacy, but also do not shy away from dealing with more difficult issues such as preventing the expansion of powerful authoritarian regimes or ensuring the establishment of a nuclear weapon-free Korea. Dear delegates, by 2022 we have to realize that peace with some neighbor nations can only be guaranteed through determination, strength. Certain states that openly talk about treating peace have to be confronted accordingly. Something Japan has always asked with regard to some of its neighbors. Violators of human rights should be prosecuted, and we need strong institutions such as International Court of Justice, but also the International Criminal Court to enforce the international law. Therefore, let us advance into a time of hope and prosperity, unity and cooperation, and let us stick to the principles of democracy, human rights, and freedom. As we say in Japan, minasan ganbarimashou. Let us make an effort. Thank you. The delegation of Japan is giving the word back to the Presidency.
Are there any further delegations wishing to take the floor? Switzerland, you have been recognized and you have the floor.
Dear Mr. President, honorable delegates, humans are humans with all their imperfections. Humans are individuals. Nobody should make decisions about them than they themselves. The resolution about whether to research and use human genetic engineering methods influences our shared future. Thus, it is for the future of mankind. Humans should stay humans, without artificial genes, without uniformity, without already determined verdicts. Switzerland is a nation that values individuality, freedom, and human rights. The Swiss Confederation hopes that our shared values will be kept in mind and will enable us to find common ground. We wish you a fruitful debate, and we are looking forward to meeting all of you. I yield the floor back to the President. Thank you.
Is the delegation open for any points of information?
No, we're not. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any further delegations wishing to take the floor? Uganda, you have been recognized.
Dear Presidency, distinguished delegates and others present, the delegation of Uganda is happy to see every delegation here and looks forward to constructive and lively debates. There is much to discuss: improving treatment of children in crisis areas, securing rights for women in developing countries, and mainly securing an ethical and clean world for the next generations. But for all these problems, we came together to find solutions, to execute these solutions, and to fix these problems. Therefore, the delegation of Uganda also looks forward to fruitful and efficient ideas for exactly these problems and the ones being created in the future. Thank you. The delegation of Uganda yields the floor back to the chair.
Is the delegation for any points of information?
No.
Thank you. Are there any further delegations wishing to take the floor? Russia from the Special Conference. Security Council, I'm sorry.
Would the House please come to order? Would the House please come to order? Delegation of Russia, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. Dear Mr. President, His Excellency, the Secretary General, honorable delegates, in this week's conference, the Security Council will discuss the situation in Yemen. Since 2014, a civil war has caused a humanitarian crisis the United Nations classify one of the most humanitarian crises in the world. Today, 80% of the Yemeni population, or 24.1 million people, are in need of humanitarian assistance. In fact, this Yemeni civil war does not only affect Yemen itself, but the whole region of the Arabian Peninsula as a major security threat too. Numerous cross-border airstrikes and attacks carried out by either the Houthis or the Saudi-led coalition have been hitting the respective opposing side. Therefore, in order to prevent more people from being affected by the conflict, a ceasefire should be agreed on very soon. Unlike they have done so in recent matters, the United Nations must play a neutral and mediating role. If we are really interested in establishing peace in Yemen and on the Arabian Peninsula, we cannot afford to just sympathize with one point of view and devalue the other. Instead, a lasting settlement of the conflict in Yemen can only be based on mutual compromises. Let me add the following remark. Russia is highly upset about the remarks of the Secretary General and the numerous previous speakers. The reaction of the United Nations, the European Union, and the NATO to Russia's operation in Ukraine, serving the security of the Russian citizen, is destroying nearly all bridges we have built up in the past years. If we want to establish peace and security, the West striving for more influence and meanwhile condemning Russia must find an end immediately. The Russian Federation hopes for fruitful debate and is looking forward to hearing constructive proposals to end the conflict in Yemen. Thank you very much. I give the floor back to the President.
Thank you. Clapping is not in order. Thank you very much for your speech. The other delegation of Russia has requested to give a speech as well, which is granted by the Secretariat. You may also approach the stage. We yield the floor to you. Order in the House. The other delegate of Russia would like to hold a speech as well. Would the House please come to order? Thank you.
Dear Mr. President, honorable delegates, now as always, Russia is to blame for all crises happening all over the world right now. But the delegation of the Russian Federation would like to remind you that in the past decades it has been the West, NATO and the US above all else who were the causes of conflict in the post-World War era. Be it the invasion of Afghanistan, Iraq or Vietnam, the United States were always seeking to increase their grip to create a unipolar world. And the second, a special military operation is launched on historical Russian ground with the purpose of denazification and the liberation of the Russian people. The West seizes the opportunity to justify an economical war on the Russian Federation. In contrast to the West, Russia ends conflict and doesn't cause them. Да здравствует Россия. I yield the floor back to the President.
Thank you for your speech. Clapping is still not in order, and we would also like to remind the delegation of Russia that declaring a war is not according to the rules of procedure and the handbook of the OLMUN. Please yield the floor back, or you yielded the floor back. Please take your place.
I already yielded the floor back.
Thank you. Hat er nicht gesagt. Are there any other delegations wishing to hold a speech? Please raise your placard. Delegation of Ukraine, we yield the floor to you.
Dear Mr. President, honorable delegates, the United Nations failed. We failed in our goal to save succeeding generations from the scourge of war. The Security Council failed to ensure international peace and security. Humans, women, children are dying in the middle of Europe. The terrorist Russian Federation destroys, blasts, murders. It's a clear contempt of international law and the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. This conference wants to find proposals for peace. We don't need proposals. We need actions and appeal to every delegation. Stop the war. Help Ukraine guard our world order against felonious dictatorships. Slava Ukraini! Herayam Slava! Repeat the floor back.
Clapping is not in order. Thank you for your speech, Delegation of Ukraine. Are there any other delegations wishing to hold a speech? We yield the floor to the delegation of the Netherlands. You may approach the podium.
Dear Mr. President, honorable delegates, we're living in a time of crisis. There's so much trouble in this world, so many things we're here trying to find solutions for. Peace, health, education, sustainability. We're here to change something, to make up something, to make this world a livable one. No delegate could deny that this is something we cannot solve, but all together. Therefore, the Netherlands will actively contribute to helping to make the world a better place. The Netherlands urge all delegates to think about their own children. How should they inherit this earth? And each delegate that believes that their children and the children of their children should inherit a better world, then should feel encouraged to work together with the Netherlands to achieve this reality. Thank you. The delegate of the Netherlands yields the floor back to the presidency.
Thank you very much. We will now put a short break into the opening speeches of the delegations because we consider ourselves extremely fortunate to have received a video message by German politician Susanne Menge, who is active in Germany's House of Parliament. We will now watch her video. Please enjoy.
Dear Mr. President, honorable delegates, thank you very much for inviting me as a guest speaker to the 21st conference of OLMUN, Oldenburg Model United Nation. I'm very sorry that I cannot be there with you in Oldenburg. I have to be in Berlin due to my parliamentary duties in the German Bundestag. I'm therefore very glad to hear that you are able to hold the conference back in its physical form in Oldenburg, my hometown and electoral district. You should be very proud of yourselves for organizing such a big and important event. OLMUN is now not only the largest simulation game of its kind in Germany, but also the largest model United Nations organized by students in Europe and the United States of America. I know myself how exhausting and stressful the preparation of big conferences like this one can be, but you did it. The conference has officially started, so please have fun and enjoy every minute of it. Model United Nation is a great opportunity for you to understand politics better in its purest form. This makes Model United Nations so special. The next few days will allow you to gain a deeper understanding of the contradiction of life, the complexity and massness of international politics, and hopefully a greater interest in the international community and multilateral cooperation. We need you, the next generation, to make things better. I'm not saying this to deny accountability of any kind. On the contrary, I'm fighting at the national level, the German Bundestag, for your participation in politics so that your voice is not only heard, but that you're sitting at the table with us. So make your voice count. I can only encourage you to do so. Model United Nations can be a first step. Please continue to grow in the direction. We need you. This year's conference topic is Causes of Conflict and Proposals for Peace. In Europe, when we talk about conflict right now, what first comes to mind is the Russian war of aggression on Ukraine. It is illegal under international law and needs to be condemned. There's no question or room for doubt. It is scary that there's a war again in Europe, so close to Germany, and there are several global consequences. Putin is using hunger as a weapon of war. For instance, Russia and Ukraine are the world's grain chambers. However, Russia stopped its exports of grain and continues to block Ukraine from exporting their harvest. A lot of countries of the global south, especially in East and Northern Africa, are dependent on these exports as well as the World Food Programme is. In consequence, more and more people suffer extreme hunger and will die if we do not stop it. I want to highlight the people having to live in conflicts rather than playing a game of geopolitics. Peace is more than the absence of war. In the end, we, the people, need to be safe in terms of being well fed, having a place to sleep, and not to worry if it is safe for me to walk that street or to take a train at that time at night. It is the state's responsibility to make sure of these securities. A state is therefore an enabler. A state is the load-bearing walls of the house that is society in order for us members of society to be able to thrive. The other way around, our taxes enable the state to build the doors and windows because it is always easier to create something together than alone. Think of a school project that you have done as a team. One of you is maybe more talented in mathematics, calculating a statistical model, than writing the report of that project. However, to get your grade, you need to do both. In the end, it is easier and less painful to do it together and share the assignment than doing it by yourself. This is the basic concept underneath the state and the common good. Of course, this is simplified. However, our systems are historically constructed in a way that only very few can participate and actually have the power to make the important decisions. Furthermore, people make decisions based on their personal experiences and what they have learned. Norms and culture are powerful things. It is no wonder that women are less represented in high positions in big companies or in politics. We women were historically not prescribed to have a say and power. When policies are thus not made for all the people, but only for very few, the consequence is imbalance. And imbalance leads to conflicts. If you have a sibling, at one point, there's always the question, why is she or he allowed to do that and not me? Why do I need to go and clean my room, but he or she does not? Coming back to the title of your conference, my proposal for peace is to put the needs of the most vulnerable and marginalized people at the forefront. However, we cannot stop there. We need to get further than that. it is not only about letting conflict-affected communities talk and listen, but providing a seat at the table. It is so simple to say this theoretically. However, try and apply its logic on the UN Security Council. The talk about its much-needed reforms, especially the current veto system, is probably older than most of you. This does not mean that we should stop trying. In the next days, when you talk about ensuring women's rights in developing countries or improving the treatment of children and adolescents in crisis areas, think about that. We need to integrate local women, children, and adolescents in the decision. This is key. We need to share the power and construct structures that make sure of that. Power is the ability not just to tell the story of another person, but to make it the definitive story of that person, especially women, children, and adolescents in crisis contexts are mostly portrayed as passive victims rather than the heroes. They are in these severe situations getting food on the table or earning money for the whole family. At the same time, of course, they are at greater risk of child labor or sexual abuse. The problem with stereotypes is not that they are untrue, but that they are incomplete. They make one story become the only story, in the words of the brilliant Nigerian writer Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie. Rather than letting other people prescribe who we are, we need to change society to recognize us how we are in our complexities. The danger of a single story has severe consequences because policies are implemented which are completely misguided, failed what they aimed to achieve. In the next days, when you argue and fight for your opinion or a specific point in your resolution, make sure to think about this danger in a single story, as Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie famously argued in a TED Talk. Go watch it if you have not seen it already. Thank you, and I yield the floor back to the President. Goodbye.
Of course, Susanne Menge is not here right now, but please be assured that we have delivered our warmest thanks to her for allowing us to show this video right here in front of you. And thank you for your attention. Now we will return to the usual program, and if any of you would like to give a speech, then you can raise your placard and please raise it high. Delegation of Belarus, we yield the floor to you.
Dear Presidency, esteemed chairs and delegates, the Delegation of Belarus is a firm believer of progress through international collaboration. We are convinced that in order to solve problems affecting our global society, every party should be heard. When talking of peace and possible solutions, one has to ask themselves, what does peace entail specifically? Is peace the mere absence of war? Or is it more than that? We, the Delegation of Belarus, believe so. Peace requires answers to structural injustices. Therefore, every country is responsible to actively enforce justice and humanity in the world. Finally, we, the United Nations, have the obligation of making the right choices, the just choices. Thank you. I'll yield the floor back to the Presidency. And no points of information. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any points? There may be order in the House. Are there any further delegations wishing to take the floor? United Kingdom, you have been recognized and you have the floor.
Should there be another interruption like this, we will also remove this delegation from the venue. Please be polite and respectful. Thank you.
We thank the presidency for the recognition and for this amazingly well-prepared conference. Honorable chairs, most distinguished delegates, the current state of the world has shaken all states into panic and disarray, which has resulted in what feels like an endless cycle of misery for both the governments and citizens involved. The circumstances in which our governments try to prosper and evolve, while at the same time help other states reach this goal, is unfitting of the standards once set out by the United Nations. Many states are still recovering from the pandemic, while issues such as the situation in Yemen and especially the war in Ukraine are becoming more significant by the second, ready to expand to worldwide humanitarian threats. It is in times like these that we as member states must remember that despite the different histories, cultures, and experiences we share, we as humans must maintain our one and most significant central right, the right to live. However, that right in the current day, sadly enough, cannot be ensured. The delegation of UK would like to express its determination to fully implement all necessary policies to ensure that peace on a global scale can be achieved. The UK has fully devoted itself to this goal, as we have mentioned that we would provide £1.3 billion in military support and aid to Ukraine due to the current war, and have implemented necessary sanctions towards the threat identified by the United Nations and member states, as well as providing Ukraine with necessary humanitarian and economic aid in a variety of ways. UK has also recognized issues that many member states are currently ignoring, like the situation in Yemen, in which the UK has been one of the most active countries in terms of the amount of funding provided to the country since 2015. The UK recognizes that regardless of the circumstances, each member state should come together and devote themselves to achieving, above all else, peace on an international scale. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is the delegation open for any points of information?
Only one.
Are there any points of information in the House? Seeing there are none, I would like to ask the delegation to yield the floor back to the presidency.
We yield the floor back to the presidency. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any further delegations wishing to take the floor? The World Trade Organization, you have been recognized.
Dear Mr. President, honorable delegates, today we are coming together to discuss the issue of conflicts, their causes, and peace treaties for them. The World Trade Organization is pleased to participate in this meeting and to play its role as a mediator between countries. It cannot and must not be denied that international security is actually threatened by certain conflicts, especially referring to the current Ukraine war, environmental and economic pressures, or even a steady arms build-up. This is partly caused by technical innovations in the military field, such as drones and self-firing weapon systems, which make waging wars more efficient. Due to this, the WTO is alarmed by the lessening accountability of humans in wars and the acquisition by terroristic groups. But bear in mind, we can and must solve those conflicts together. The WTO has learned from the past, especially after its creation after the Second World War, that nothing is more important than international cooperation. Because of that, the WTO acts on behalf of their members to provide them with freedom and economic stability. In the past, they have succeeded with boosting international trade. It is fact that without the WTO, an average country would face an increase on tariffs on their exports immensely. However, one of the WTO's priorities is international security, so a diplomatic agreement on the conflicts is our aim. The WTO wants to act as an intermediary between the different countries to solve conflicts and create a diplomatic atmosphere. Furthermore, as a proposal for peace, the WTO suggests to bear in mind the WTO's influence on the international market, which can be used to set trade barriers for weapons to support disarmament. as a product of globalization. The WTO wants to solve those conflicts as a world and not just countries. The WTO is open to any proposals for peace. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is the delegation of the World Trade Organization open for any points of information?
Yes, only one.
Is there a point of information in the House? Seeing there is none, I would like to ask you to yield the floor back to the Presidency.
The WTO yields the floor back to the President.
Thank you.
Are there any other delegations wishing to hold a speech? The delegation of the United States of America, please approach the podium. You have the floor.
Dear Presidency, honorable delegates, and dear guests. The United States of America has experienced several conflicts in the past. We have fought wars within our own country and around the whole world. Most of the member states present have also participated in some kind of war. And conflict is known for such wars. These kinds of conflict inflict danger, poverty, and hunger to the inhabitants of the world. Conflict is caused by disagreement, discontent, and dissent. And thus is conflict the way to solve disharmony. However, war is most of the time not the correct action to take in order to solve our indifferences. A better approach is to discuss our different views on problems. And that is exactly what the delegation of the United States of America is here for. In this MUN, we will try to find solutions to various worldwide problems. We will be present in the General Assembly, the Human Rights Council, the Social, Cultural and Humanitarian Council, the Arctic Council, and the Security Council. We will go into discussion in order to find the causes of conflict, to find solutions, and to make proposals for peace, like we have always tried. God bless America and all of you. Thank you.
Is the delegation of the United States of America open for any points of information?
No.
Then please yield the floor back to the Presidency.
The United States of America yields the floor back to the Presidency.
Thank you very much. Okay, moving on. Are there any further delegations wishing to deliver a speech? The placket, if I am correct, says Saudi Arabia. In this case, the delegation of Saudi Arabia has the floor and can now deliver the speech.
Dear members of the Secretariat, chairs, and fellow delegates, may peace and Allah's mercy be upon you. It is a great pleasure for the delegation of Saudi Arabia to be able to join you today. Thus, we would like to express our gratitude. The delegation of Saudi Arabia is looking forward to cooperation between our nations and to seeking solutions for international problems that are stopping our possible development. Building bridges between our countries is a necessity, and we must overcome our differences and embrace solidarity to work together efficiently. The delegation of Saudi Arabia also is denouncing any attempts to negotiate with Houthi terrorists and asks the United Nations not to repeat its mistakes of the past. May peace, mercy, and blessings of Allah be upon you. We are not open to any points of information. The delegation of Saudi Arabia gives the floor back to the Presidency.
Are there any points of information in the House? Oh. Yeah. Sitting there.
Please yield the floor back to the presidency and, did you? Okay, then please leave the stage. Sorry. Are there any other delegations wishing to hold a speech? Turkmenistan. The delegation of Turkmenistan may approach the stage. You have the floor.
Dear Mr. President, honorable delegates, some of you perhaps do not really know where to look for Turkmenistan on the map, but even if some of you have little idea about who we are to be taken seriously because we own the world's fourth most gas reserves. We are a progressive country. Article 29 of the Turkmen Constitution and Law No. 264b of 2015 grant equal civil rights to men and women. And to enforce equal rights and to protect us women, all women are required to wear special pants under their dresses, and unmarried women are subject to regular virginity tests carried out by trustworthy male authorities. We hope for a peaceful discussion. Thank you. I yield the floor back to the President.
Thank you very much. Are there any other delegations wishing to deliver a speech? Delegation of Peru, you may approach the stage. You have the floor.
Dear Presidents, honorable delegates and others present, we, the delegation of Peru, are honored to be here and fulfill our very important mission to represent our people. We believe that every voice matters and has the right to be heard. As we have recently reached a population of more than 8 billion people on our planet, our duty as delegates to represent exactly these voices has become even more crucial. To truly reach our goal to ensure world peace and create security for everyone, it is of utmost importance that we work together, hear each other and not simply dismiss one another, get over our differences and make compromises for the sake of our world and our people. The time to act and make a change is now, which is why we hope for a cooperative and productive discussion with you all. We yield the floor back to the Presidency. And no points of, please, okay?
Thank you. Are there any further delegations wishing to take the floor? Ireland, you have been recognized and you have the floor.
Dear Mr. President, dear Mr. Secretary General, Excellencies, honorable delegates, ladies and gentlemen. Even though the number of armed conflicts and wars has decreased over time, no nation will deny the fact that due to global warming and climate change, and for example, associated natural disasters, have increased the number of crises in the world, and for example, continue to result in a violation of the international humanitarian law by exploitation, abuse, or different various types of violence. This number will continue to grow exponentially unless a union of most of the This number will continue to grow exponentially unless a union of most of the nation seeks to take measures against those worldwide obstacles and predicaments. However, due to the current state of the world, the tense circumstances, the ongoing wars, and the consequent scarcity of resource, such a settlement isn't possible yet. That's why the nations should work together and endeavor to prevent the current situation from deteriorating. Therefore, as a country being part of the international collaboration, Ireland will play a major role in the process of improving the compliance to the international human law and in ensuring that the Climate Protection Act is complied with by being an invigilator. Comrades, we are living in momentous times. Thank you for paying attention so carefully. The delegation of Ireland is not open to any points of information and yields the floor back to the presidency.
Thank you very much. Are there any other delegations wishing to deliver a speech? Cuba. The delegation of Cuba has the floor. Please approach the podium.
Esteemed President, honorable chairs, distinguished delegates, the Cuban government and the Cuban people are highly anticipating this conference. It has been 61 years since the Bay of Pigs invasion, which made Cuba an active conflict zone for the last time. In memory of this, the people of Cuba strongly condemn any military intervention on foreign soil. Furthermore, even while we are facing an international economic crisis as a result of the special military operation in Ukraine, the United States of America still continue their criminal embargo against Cuba. The Cuban delegation urges every member state present to fight against this major injustice. We are delighted to tell you that the Cuban society will help to fight problems of the modern globalized world, because global problems can only be solved by global solutions. The delegation looks forward to exchange ideas about peace and cooperation. Thank you, Mr. President. I yield the floor back to the presidency.
Thank you very much.
We're not
Force you
open for
back
any
to the
points of
presidency.
information.
Yes. Any other delegations wishing to give a speech? Is the delegate of the United States of America another delegation that would like to hold a speech? In this case, please approach the podium. The floor is yours. The delegation of Afghanistan will give the speech after the delegation of the United States of America.
Dear Presidency, honorable delegates, and dear guests. Strained global relations, unsafe living situations, and unforeseeable changes. Inhabitants of the planet Earth are unsure of the future, and they need a sense of security. We are here together today as the United Nations to guarantee this better future for them. As new conflicts are arising, it's upon us to ensure that the world rises into a state of stability and peace. It goes without saying that we should make every effort to ensure that the decisions we make today are the best for what humanity needs. Because we need to keep in mind that the decisions we make are not only important for the people today, but also for generations to come. Together, we can work towards greatness. Together, we can solve problems we face today. Together, we can make a free world for all. As a great power in this world, the United States hopes to contribute to the debate, which hopefully will lead us to a solution that will make the world more peaceful. Let's make a better future now. Thank you, and God bless you all. We yield the floor back to the presidency.
Thank you very much for your speech. Next up, the delegation of Afghanistan has requested to give a speech. Please approach the stage. You have the floor.
Dear Committee Councils, honorable delegates, as we all know, developing nations face numerous challenges, one of which is ensuring the rights of women and girls. To progress in the right direction, a country must value all genders equally. When both genders have equal access to opportunities, a society develops more efficiently in all areas. Women in Afghanistan have experienced all the highs and lows that come with being a woman in a developing nation. We have seen our rights taken away and then restored. We as a country believe that unless we all work together and have a clear purpose, more changes can be made for all women, girls, and girls around the world. Thank you.
The delegation, please yield the floor back to the presidency.
I yield the floor back to the presidency.
Thank you very much. Are there any other delegations wishing to deliver a speech? Is the delegation of Russia holding up the placard another delegate that would also like to hold a speech? In this case, the delegation of Russia has the floor. Please come to order.
1 minute. Thanks.
Is pleased to be present in the Arctic Council too, and hopes for constructive and goal-oriented debates, and in the end, a resolution that has been found by consensus and that is to everyone's satisfaction. This year's theme is very important: protecting the natural ecosystems of the Arctic region and its indigenous people. We, the Russian Federations, are the most affected of all because we have more than the half of the Arctic coast in our territory. More than the half of the Arctic population also lives with us. Compared to the average temperature between 1979 and 2000, the Arctic warmed by around 1.4 degrees Celsius in 2021. The rise in temperature has far-reaching consequences for the ice sheet, permafrost, water temperature, and sea level. Although we can call more than half of our coast our own, we cannot conserve the entire Arctic on our own. The same applies to the other states on this committee and in the world. Therefore, the Russian Federation calls on them to constructively see a solution together. Stop blaming and excluding of the Russian Federation and work instead of it together with us, because you can't reach our common goal without us. It doesn't make sense to exchange or separate us in every committee. Protecting the natural ecosystems of the Arctic region and its indigenous people belongs to all of us. And that's why we want you to call up in the end for discussing a solution with every member state of the Arctic Council so we can all be able to protect the Arctic region and its indigenous people. Thank you. No point of information, back to the presidency.
Thank you very much. Are there any other delegations wishing to hold a speech? Okay. Seeing there are no other delegations wishing to hold a speech, please restore order to the House. Portugal, you have been recognized. Please approach the stage. The floor is yours. You have the floor.
The delegation of Portugal would like, first of all, to thank the chairs for the recognition, distinguished chairs, delegate, and presidency. The world has its scourged for millennia by the brutality of war. It has been a constant in our history, the history of humans. It killed people, destroyed cities, separated families. For too many citizens of our earth, however, it is still a reality that in their day-to-day takes place, as we, the international community, have been reminded this year. That doesn't mean, however, that all hope is lost. Dear delegates, we have to remember that we never had so many tools to make warfare a relic of the past, something that we must not forget, but still try to eliminate in the day-to-day life of millions of people. The delegation of Portugal then asked the international community to stand together, to fight the common enemy of humanity, to fight against war. The delegation of Portugal gives the word to the presidency.
Thank you for your speech. Are there any other delegations wishing to hold a speech? Seeing there are none, we will now move on and watch the first part of the morning show, of which you will receive one every morning. Enjoy.
Welcome to the OLMUN United Nations Conference 2022 and welcome to the first episode of our morning show. My name is Lisbeth and I am today's host. Welcome. Today we want to introduce you to everything you need to know to survive this week. But before we do that, you will get to know the students responsible for organizing the OLMUN. The main responsibility lies with the Secretariat. It consists of Jerzy Heikans, the Secretary General, and his deputy, Anneli Koska. They are responsible for the general organization of the conference. President of the General Assembly, Per Panja, and his deputy, Kian Assen, are responsible for the proceedings throughout the week and will lead the discussions. Treasurer Klaus Kempf is helping the team by taking care of the financial organization of the OLMUN. The Secretariat is assisted by a group of around 30 students, the Inner Circle. They are responsible for everything surrounding the OLMUN, from choosing the topics for the committees to preparing the venue you're in right now, making sure that the conference runs smoothly and creating a great experience for everyone participating, hopefully. Now we will lead you through today's timetable. Since we're in the opening ceremony right now, most of today's work is already done. You've passed the registration and take part in the introduction. The opening ceremony will last until approximately 4:30 p.m. And now, the entertainment manager of this year's OLMUN has an announcement to make.
Thank you, Lisbeth. This evening, we will have a barbecue at the Graf Anton Günther Gymnasium at 6 p.m. There you will find signs that lead you to the action. No dress code required. We have a few vegan options, grilled cheese, and of course, the German bratwurst. So come, have fun, food, and enjoy our masterful playlist. Now I have some information about these wonderful OLMUN cups. This year we want to reduce plastic waste, so we have these reusable cups for you. You can get them at the merchandise shop at the entrance or tomorrow in your committees for €2. There won't be any other cups in your committees, so go and get one. On Friday you can return them to your admin staffs and get your money back, or you can keep them as a little souvenir. So let's see you tonight, and now back to Lisbeth.
During the week, you as a member of the OLMUN will have several discounts in stores around Oldenburg when showing your badge. In the following, we will show the stores where you can get drinks and foods for less. All of the discounts can be found in the official OLMUN app, available in the Google's Play Store or the Apple Store. You will get a 10% discount at Kaffee Kurswechsel and Hans im Glück, as well as 15% off at Heimathafen in gastronomy. At Captiva, you'll get a €1 discount and you sauce for free at Fritz Pommes. At Ule Kneipe, you will get 1 free Schnaps when you order beer. Very good deal. Please make sure to always carry your badge with you, because you will only get the discounts by showing your badge at the place of desire. This works, of course, between June 21st and June 24th. For more information, you can check the Survival Pack, the OLMUN app, or our social media accounts. There you will find everything you need to know and the latest updates. Make sure to follow us on social media and check out our blog, The Digital Daily Diplomat, at www.digitaldailyDiplomat.org. And now the weather for Oldenburg on June 21st. In the morning it will be sunny and the temperature will be 14 degrees Celsius. At noon it remains sunny with highs up to 19 degrees Celsius, while the temperatures rise to 22 degrees Celsius in the afternoon. Later in the evening, the sky remains cloudless in Oldenburg, with temperatures ranging from 17 to 20 degrees. At night, the thermometer drops to 30 degrees Celsius. As always, this information is without guarantee. That will be the end of today's morning show. Have fun and enjoy your first day of OLMUN 22, and see you tomorrow.
Okay, once more we have Erik Demann, our Chief of TV, to thank for this wonderful morning show. And now we continue. We have received a message of greeting by Stefan Weil, who is the current Minister President of Lower Saxony. And this came in written form, which is why the presidency, me, will now take the floor and read it out in his place. To the participating pupils and everyone else involved or interested. I am delighted to welcome you all to the 21st Oldenburg Model United Nations Conference. In the past year, our day-to-day life and last year's OLMUN event was very much dominated by the special circumstances and challenges surrounding the COVID-19 pandemic. So I'm very glad to hear that this year participants can once again meet in person. At the same time, we have, since the end of February, found ourselves confronted with an immense new challenge. The war of aggression being waged by Russia against Ukraine, one which violates international law, has shocked and horrified all of us. Few would have thought that an armed conflict of this nature could occur at the heart of Europe. Russia's assault has fundamentally called into question many certainties and rules of our international and European order. The social and political implications of this war can only be guessed at. It is clear, however, that we will have to face up to these consequences. We are all called upon to commit ourselves firmly to peace, democracy, and human rights, and to help those people suffering in the impact of war, violence, and displacement. Given this background, it is, therefore, highly fitting that you have chosen causes of conflict and proposals for peace as your theme for this year's conference. During this event, you will be addressing and seeking answers to many of the questions that so many are asking now. How and why do international conflicts occur? How can they be peacefully resolved by diplomatic means? How can aggression be contained? And how can peace be secured on a lasting basis? You will be focusing intently on how political decisions are reached under difficult conditions and in the face of what are, in some cases, highly conflicting interests. This is a challenging and complex task. OLMUN, however, provides you with the opportunity to try out and experience this very thing together. You will also learn a great deal about structural and procedural aspects of UNO, as well as about the particular challenges of the international political arena. You will have to weigh up different arguments, seek advice from experts, and consider potential consequences of your decisions before the final stage, namely full, transparent, and clear communication. Jointly arriving at hard-fought compromises, peacefully resolving conflicts, and making collectively binding decisions. All of this is part and parcel of international diplomacy and of OLMUN itself. OLMUN enables young people to network, engage in debate, develop ideas together, advocate for their own interests, sharpen their rhetorical skills, and, above all, strengthen their commitment to democracy, justice, solidarity, sustainability, and human rights. At the same time, this format empowers those attending to discover self-efficacy, participation, and inclusive involvement. Especially given what you have all been through during this lengthy pandemic, it strikes me that this lively interaction will be especially important and worthwhile. This makes OLMUN an extremely successful example of how participants can be enabled to develop key political and democratic competencies that are sure to benefit them in their future endeavors. Planning and staging an event of this scale demands a high degree of dedication and professionalism, one asset that is bound to have been, and to remain, a recurring necessity in this regard is a certain talent for improvisation. I am grateful to everyone involved in conceiving and executing this year's OLMUN conference. I hope this year's conference proves a great success and that all of those attending gain a broader perspective and an open outlook on the state of our world and its problems. Stefan Bayo, Minister President of Lower Saxony.
Thank you very much, Kian. Okay, last but not least, we have David McAllister participating in the European Parliament. He has already been kind enough to share a video message with us last year, and he agreed to do the same thing this year as well. Please enjoy David McAllister.
Dear Mr. Heikens, dear students, thank you for inviting me to address you during the 21st International Session of the Oldenburg Model United Nations. Warm regards from the European Parliament here in Brussels. With over 700 delegates each year, this event stands out as the largest Model United Nations conference in Germany. Since its start in 2001, OLMUN has evolved to become ever more professional. You bring together young, engaged, critical minds from across the world to not only discuss the challenges our world faces today, but to propose viable solutions to them. Let me first of all thank all of this year's OLMUN organizers who have put a lot of work and effort into this project. It is a good opportunity to learn more about the United Nations and international politics while making new friends from across the world. This year's topic, Causes of Conflict and Proposals for Peace, is particularly apt in 2022, a year that has already cautioned us not to take peace for granted, because, for the first time in decades, war is back on the European continent. Russia's unprovoked and unjustified military aggression against Ukraine violates international law and the principles of the United Nations Charter. The Kremlin is trying to undermine European and global security and stability. As an international community, I am convinced we must stand as firm in the face of this threat as the Ukrainian military and the entire nation. Ukrainians who, until a few months ago, led a completely normal life, are defending their homeland with admirable courage. They are not only defending their own country, they are fighting and dying for our common security and our European values. For this reason, the international community has shown and must continue to show its full support for our Ukrainian partners politically, economically, and militarily. However, Russia's war against Ukraine is not the only crisis our world is unfortunately facing. Internationally, political tensions, droughts and conflicts in countries like Sudan, Somalia or Yemen have left millions of women, men and children in dire need of humanitarian aid. In Syria, people are enduring the worst economic crisis since the war began, with record levels of food and water insecurity, as well as rapid inflation. And in Afghanistan, the Taliban completely obliterated women's rights advances and media freedom. Here in Europe, the effects of the pandemic and the necessary sanctions against the Russian Federation continue to put a strain on our economy and the cost of living. As Europeans and as an international community, I am confident that we will be able to tackle these challenges ahead if we demonstrate sufficient commitment to cooperation. Dear students, I'm happy to see how enthusiastic you are about global issues. Your model United Nations is built on open minds and fresh ideas. Many of you have been asked to represent national agendas or points of view that you may personally disagree with. You will do so fairly and forcefully. This open-mindedness is the essence of successful diplomacy. The ability to understand and analyze all positions, including those that you might or do oppose. Together, you represent global cooperation as it should be. People from different countries coming together to find solutions to challenges through constructive debate and a fruitful exchange of ideas. So let me wish you every success for your conference in Oldenburg.
Once more, rest assured that David McAllister has received our thanks for giving us this wonderful video message. As we are now nearing the end of this year's opening ceremony, there are two more important informations. First of all, there seems to have been a slight error in the conference guide and the app, which are unfortunately synced. The barbecue this evening takes place at 6, not at 7. But the location remains the same. It is the Graf Anton Günther Schule. The exact address can be found in the app. We hope to see as many of you there as possible. Also, I was just informed by the developer of our app that an update might be required in order to have the app work properly. So if you have downloaded the app already, make sure that all updates are downloaded in the App Store or the Android store. Now, after that, a very warm thank you to all those that have helped putting this opening ceremony together. Thank you very much for all the intriguing and extremely well-prepared speeches. I'm sure that this ceremony was full of surprises and it was very interesting. It is our honor to have prepared this OLMUN for you, and we deeply hope that all of you can enjoy these 4 days. To put it in the words of our dear Secretary General Jeto Haikans, the OLMUN is now officially opened. Thank you very much for attending. See you this evening.